And you mentioned some of the Christo-fascism of this administration. I want to play this clip from Charlie Kirk's memorial, which it was filled with pyrotechnics and speeches by Donald Trump and other political figures, where it seems like everybody's last conversation with Charlie Kirk validated all of their politics prior to this. But Benny Johnson, MAGA influencer, who I don't know if he was responsible for the grinder outage at the event. I mean, it could have been him. It could have been anybody, honestly, just due to overuse. Here he is speaking, and you can pick up a lot of what Jennifer is saying here about like the Christo-fascist elements of this movement.
The Apostle Paul describes how God establishes the rulers of the nations. In the audience right now, there are rulers of our land. Represented right here is the State Department, the Department of War, the Department of Justice, the Chief Executive. God has instituted them. God has given them power over our nation and our land. God saved our president, President Trump, from an assassin's bullet for this moment. And what does the Apostle Paul in Romans say about a godly leadership? He says that rulers wield the sword for the protection of good men and for the terror of evil men. May we pray that our rulers here.
Okay, I think we get the gist. I like how men are both the protagonists and antagonists. Women are just along for the ride. God saved the president, but wanted the
men on men action.
Right, wanted the firefighter to die at the rally, and then I guess also had to sacrifice Charlie Kirk for this moment is the implication from Benny Johnson.
He works in mysterious ways.
I mean, so this is what they do. This is what is Christian signaling, Jesus signaling, and this is what, as being an atheist Democrat in a red state my whole life, I see that these politicians do. And when you think about people in rural America, they don't fucking know what's going on in Gaza. And I don't want to step on anybody's toes. They don't care. That is the part of rural America is simply, you get up. My husband's from rural Oklahoma. He's a criminal defense attorney. And he said, you get up, you try to, grind your way through your day. Nobody's making any money. Everybody's broke. Half the people are on meth. And then you watch Wheel of Fortune. And then you say, who can I blame for my shitty life? Fox News serves up who you can blame, who you're going to scapegoat, those immigrants, those trans people, those drag queens, those lesbians. We had a guy who ran for Senate in Oklahoma, and he campaigned in rural Oklahoma that lesbians were a huge problem in eastern Oklahoma, which I would say there is kind of a fine line between cowgirls and lesbians. Sometimes you're kind of like, could go either way. But right. They Christian signal, and it works with them because their only form of culture or home or social life is in these churches, and the churches are hell, fire, damnation. You're no good. You need to be saved. And so the two, for me, I was not surprised that Christians clung on to Trump because I've always been at the top of prayer list. Everybody's always been trying to save me my whole life. And they are very primed for this type of cruelty talk. When friends would take me to go get me saved, the preachers sound exactly like Donald Trump. They sound exactly like Benny Johnson. So it's familiar.
I know you've spoken about this a bit with your co-host Pumps about, her upbringing versus yours, her growing up in a more traditional Christian household in the United States. Like, how has your friendship kind of informed that, one? And two, if you could expand on the element about churches only being like the only form of community, because I think that's really important. It's why cities are so scary to, I think, conservatives, is because you interact with all different kinds of people and you're in such close proximity that you have more options to form community. Although I think capitalism largely limits it because we're so on a razor's edge about our next paycheck or whatever. But like that element, I think, is really important. And this is a very drawn out question, but when I used to go cover Trump rallies, I was going to one Trump rally a week in the lead up to 2020. And it felt like when I went to mega church with my aunt, like it was the same vibe, and it is a form of community, a perverse one, but it's because there are no other ones.
Totally. So, I had a really unique upbringing. My parents, atheists. I don't know why we were in the buckle of the Bible Belt, but we were. I was born in Dallas, then moved to Oklahoma City when I was in grade school. And my parents traveled all the time, but I grew up around all of these really religious people. And so when I never fit in with them because I was never indoctrinated. You know how today the rapture is supposed to come on Christian Talk? They're talking about it.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if we got raptured just right here on air?
Love it. I mean,
two
Oklahoma
atheists
City would be so tolerable. I want it to happen. But I remember when I was in 8th grade, I was a Brink Bobcat cheerleader, go Bobcats. And everybody that I went to middle school with was like, the rapture's coming, the rapture's coming, the rapture's coming. I tell my mom, she'd go, oh, for God's sakes, Jennifer, that's ridiculous. These Christians are so intellectually stupid. And, the football game came and went, the rapture never came. But it's this cult-like thing, and there's all this pressure to be involved in it. I'm so grateful that I was never indoctrinated in it, because what we have right now is a bunch of people that are suffering the consequences of religious abuse. And my co-host, Pumps, she suffered the consequences of religious abuse. Now, her parents didn't set out to do this. The structures that they were raised in earnestly set her to be raised in the same structures. But if you're told when you're born that you're inherently bad, and I had a boyfriend in high school, Emma, whose dad was a Baptist preacher, and he got grounded for 3 months for beating off when he was 16 years old. Like, the shame of that is incredibly
what that does to you.
Abusive. And so then you see Grindr crashing, and you see all of these MAGA people that have all of this child essay stuff on their phones. And I think you have like a mass psychosis of people that are suffering from religious abuse. So when they have things like this, where they can all get together to feel normal, and then the propaganda administration they know exactly what they're doing by using religion in this way. And there's so many people, this is all they know. And I think this is what's so insidious about what Charlie Kirk did. He knew, and the people that funded him knew, that for all of these megachurch people in suburban, rural America, they did exactly what their parents told them to do. They prayed at the flagpole. They did Bible study, circle jerks, etc. Circle jerk, pun intended. Pun intended there. Right. Yeah. And so then they go to college, and that's the first time they're free. They're liberated. They can maybe make their own script. And that's what's so dangerous and insidious about what Charlie Kirk did. They intentionally wanted him placed at a time where free thought could be uninterrupted. And he went there to interrupt it and Christian signal. And so, the right always accuses us of virtue signaling. And probably we're guilty of that. And I don't think that's something we should necessarily apologize for. But weaponizing your faith against people who inherently have some questions, like, did Noah really load up all those animals and get on the boat? Like, I had friends that literally believe that. Pumps, right. My co-host, she told me one time she thought people lived to be 950 years old. And she had been to law school. Imagine that, been to law school, but was indoctrinated not to critically think, not to ask questions. And that's what's so egregious and horrible about Turning Point's activities, is they're stunting the growth. And then you're going to have more broken, damaged people, because that's the perfect petri dish for MAGA to get all of their supporters.
It is interesting to me too how the relationship with Trump also almost mirrors, not to psychoanalyze them too much, but it's kind of fun, mirrors a relationship with almost like an abusive father where it feels like love, where he's abusing them and you just take it because there's no, I feel it seems like healthy emotional reaction or critical thought that
But
could
Emma,
allow
I think
you
it's bigger than that. I think
yeah.
it mirrors the relationship with the Old Testament God.
There you go. There you go. Well, I mean, he stands in as Jesus. And you heard Mike Pence. I don't know if you read that interview with him a few years ago, back when he was still vice president. He described how, Trump is this imperfect vessel, but he feels like God is speaking through him, and serving him is like serving God. And I don't know how you get from point A to point B, except for the fact that Trump is like charismatic and omnipresent, charismatic in his own perverse way, and leading a coalition of religious fundamentalists.
Yeah, I mean, I was not surprised because when all of my friends were trying to save me when I was in junior high and high school, and I would lie to my mother and say, hey, I'm going to go spend the night with this person. She'd be like, don't go to that church. Of course, I immediately went to the church because I wanted to fit in with my friends, right? And so I remember this one church I went to in particular. It was called Crossroads Cathedral. And my friend Shonda and her mother drove me there, and they were working class people. My family was more upper middle class. And Shonda's mom worked at UPS, really sweet lady named Debbie. And we pull up to 7-Eleven, and she has a cup in her car full of coins with a $20 bill at the top. And she said, you girls pump the gas and one of you go pay. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go pay. Shonda, you pump the gas. So I grabbed the $20 bill and I'm going to take it into 7-Eleven. She wanted us to put $5 in. She goes, no, Jennifer, that 20 is for the pastor. It's for the church. Count out the coins. And so I was like, well, that's fucked up. But I did as I was told. I counted out the coins. We pull up to Crossroads Cathedral in South Oklahoma City. And right at the same time, this white Rolls Royce pulls up. And this guy gets out, Pastor Schaefer is his name, and he has on a white suit and a white mink coat. His wife gets out, and she has total Tammy Faye vibes, Righteous Gemstone. The big eyelashes, a white mink coat. We go inside, and they start doing all this Bible thumping and talking in tongues and talking about demons and all this fucking crazy shit. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever been around. And here's Debbie, who had a black eye because her husband had roughed her up a few nights before, giving $20 to this grifter, this total lying sack of shit, Pastor Schaefer. And so when Trump started doing that, I thought, this is familiar to them. This type of abusive, lying, grifting relationship is familiar, and the cognitive dissonance that it takes to both love your pastor and overlook all of his moral, obvious shortcomings is very familiar to this base. So I think that my perspective, having been raised in the Death Star, I'm not shocked that Christians like him. I know people on the coast were shocked. I was not shocked one bit. He's mean. He traffics in cruelty. Every single church that I went to where my friends tried to get me saved, the same thing. It was the same kind of talking, rambling, whacked out shit that Trump does.
He is a glorified megachurch pastor, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, that is fascinating. That really solves a lot of, I think, questions, that maybe people have about that relationship because of, all of the things that should be antithetical because of his complete, depravity individually. That all got washed away for that reason.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.